So I think, as you noticed from that video, that was an internal video to sign up our employees to get them to be trained in social media. But the point of the video is, why focus on social media as a business, as a person? And the reason for that is that customers are expecting it, they're demanding it. And I thought a lot of those stats were very relevant for whether you're in a small business, a large business, or you're looking for your next job. Social media is changing forever the way brands engage with customers. They're expecting real-time engagement. They're expecting responses. They're expecting the whole company to respond to them in the way that they are asking, in the medium that they're choosing. So those businesses and those folks who decide not to get on board are going to be left behind. So what I'd like to share with you today in the next 10 minutes, and I promise I won't speak more than that, is why I think it's really important for both businesses, but then also for you as future and current business leaders, as potentially facilitators of this transformation, to really think about social media, both in terms of helping your brands engage with customers, but also for you and your career advancement, and how you can build your profile and your presence on social media. So that was the case. I'm going to start a little bit with, Adobe figured this out early on. I'm very, very fortunate to have a CMO, Ann Lunis, who saw the trend back in 2008, 2009 and said, this thing called social, we better get on that. And oh, Maria, by the way, why don't you lead that? So I had been leading our PR program internationally for about 9 years. I've been here a long time. And I brought to her kind of an evaluation. Hey, this thing called social, it's kind of big, we should get on board, we're not coordinated. And she said, great, you do it, but you only get an intern. And you have 10,000 employees to engage, and you have to figure this out. And I'm like, oh my God, how do we do that? I'm just throwing this up there, not to brag, but to say we're now getting recognition as a player in social media within the industry. We have awards. We are engaging our customers, I think, authentically. And we're moving the needle business-wise in terms of revenue and proving our value. And so that's all great. But we didn't start there. It was very terrifying when she said, take this on. And take this on with only an intern. Not only did I feel ill-equipped because the people who were highly engaged in social media at the time, they were evangelists and bloggers. They felt like they owned their brand. They owned what they were doing. And I was supposed to go in there and tell them, come on board and do this, with a vision toward a broader company goal. And I thought, oh my God, how am I going to succeed? Not only that, I'm a PR person at heart. That's my background and my training. If you don't know, PR folks are trained to enable spokespeople and executives to be in the limelight. I'm not comfortable speaking on stage. I'm not comfortable really tweeting all the time. So to be put in that position was not only a professional challenge, a very personal challenge. To say, get out of your comfort zone, take some risks. This demands this of you. You have to step up and do it. And so I thought, okay, what do I have to lose, right? If I don't do it, the option B was not good. So I jumped in and I did it. And the reason, the way that I worked through that was engaging teams and people who are already in social media and showing them that, hey, together we're going to add more value for what you're trying to do. And so I built bridges. I didn't try to break them down. I didn't try to inhibit. But I'll get to the do's and don'ts a little later. So as I climbed out and I learned what to do, I enlisted help. And that's the first thing I would say to you. If you feel like you don't know where to start in your own personal branding, but maybe for your company as, current and future business leaders, how to be a catalyst for change, get help. So go out, learn, and, figure out what other people are doing. Reach out to peers like you and ask for help. I enlisted the help of a group called Altimeter. They were just broken away from Forrester, an analyst firm, and I asked them to come in back in 2008, 2009 and evaluate my program. The reason I did that was to just kind of here's where we are, but here's where I want to be. And what they helped me do was identify the top 3 priorities. And by doing that, I didn't squander my very limited resource of my one intern and no budget. And we were able to identify these are the top 3 things that matter, and this is what we're going to focus on relentlessly. So we were able to strike some wins by doing that. And we're able to move the needle. The other thing, and I know you all know this, if you do not have authority over the people that you have to sway, Building bridges, persuading, showing them the value of how it's going to bring value to them is going to really matter. And so meeting with all these teams and showing them, if we have a coordinated strategy, I know you want to do your own thing, but if we do this together, we're going to be so much bigger than you can ever be individually. That really, really made a difference. So they helped me create a roadmap, and I'm grateful to say that we've moved up in our social readiness in terms of kind of finally, turning that point and having a robust program. And the steps that they actually helped me identify was organize internally. And I think this is true for almost anything. I apply this to social media, but you can actually think through this. Organize internally. Figure out your game plan before you jump in, right? For social media, it's about empowering employees. At Adobe, we have approaching 12,000 employees. I'm proud to say most of them are highly engaged. The fact that they can do that on behalf of the brand is a great megaphone. And it far offsets the risk that is incurred by having all these employees tweeting on our behalf and engaging in social media. So empowering employees is key. But measuring relentlessly is also really important, because if you don't measure it, according to executives, it doesn't exist, right? You might have done something, but if you can't prove the value, what was the point? And so measuring all of your efforts relentlessly is really important. Engaging your customers, making sure you're authentic. I'm going to share with you some do's and don'ts in a little while is really key. And then how to scale. So this is a talk that I usually give, and it takes like about an hour with other social practitioners, and I'm not going to bore you with that. But if anybody wants it, I can share it with you after. And I will flip through that. We organized internally. We empowered our employees through guardrails. We provided trainings. We measured. And this is really the key. For those of you who are trying to kind of prove this out, both either personally but definitely professionally, that came up as part of an earlier session. Figuring out what matters most to your executives and the people who have budget decisions, who are stakeholders, creating a pilot or some kind of a program, and proving out your hypothesis is going to be really key. But you have to measure that, and then making sure you track that data and you prove the value, then you can take it back to those stakeholders and make your business case. And then with that business case, you're most likely to get more budget and more resources, and then you can scale. That's how it worked for us. I started with one intern. We're now up to 20 dedicated social media practitioners. And then 80, if I think about all of the people all over the world who have social media responsibilities. When I compare that to SAP and Cisco and Intel, who have hundreds of thousands of employees, I think we definitely have about the same dedicated social staff. So it's really impressive that by proving out the value, measuring it, and then making a business case, we're able to scale. We're able to plug the holes in our social program, and we're able to then deliver a better experience for our customers. And I'm pretty much done. The only way you do that, again, is to engage your employees, because that's how you create your megaphone and your echo chamber. But you can't just jump into it too lightly, right? You have to think about what is your brand? What is acceptable? What's not acceptable? So at Adobe, we define these do's and don'ts, and I think you can apply them to your own practice, either within your business or just you personally. It's not rocket science. It really is about acting responsibly and just using your common sense. But, it's really important to be authentic, especially if you are working for a company and it may be uncovered someday that you do work for that company. A lot of brands have gotten into trouble called astroturfing, where employees went and kind of skewed the data. You don't want that to happen. So acknowledge where you work and be authentic and be honest. Be relevant and timely. If something was commented on a month ago, do you really need to chime in on that? It's a bit dated. But also add value. Retweeting is great, and calling out what other people are doing in the social media sphere is really important. But adding your own perspective and your own point of view is really important. It's adding value. It's taking it one step beyond. This you should know, right? You can get sued for defaming or disparaging any person, and certainly for representing a brand. And it's very important for Adobe, as we have a lot of engineers, and many of them are active in social media, to not reveal product information before it's shipped or before it's announced. And so knowing what's publicly available and what hasn't yet been announced is really important for a brand. And then think about this. You know, a lot of people use that test. You want your mother to see this on Facebook, but I use it like, do you want this to appear as a Mashable article trending in the top 5, or do you want it to be a New York Times, you know, headline? And we have learned from this, sadly. Back in the day, several years ago, when Steve Jobs was still with us, he attacked our Flash platform and technology, and he attacked the brand Adobe in many ways for calling us lazy and suggesting all sorts of things that some of it actually we agreed with and some of it we did not at all. And that was really a tough time for us at Adobe. And we found ourselves in the midst of a crisis. Why? Not just because this icon, this industry icon, was calling us bad names, but also because it took us so long to respond. It took us, I think, 2 days to pull together our executive point of view that was our position, you know, based on the claims that he was making. And in that vacuum, in that absence of other information, a very passionate evangelist of ours came out and said, screw you, Apple, among other things. He said, blah, 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 this is why you're wrong. You know, as an employee, I think there were many employees that felt that was a bit cathartic to feel like, wow, he's out there. But did we want that to be the company position? No, absolutely not. Adobe is many, many things, but we really do take the high road, and we don't want to squabble over things. And that was not what we felt as a brand. So that's an example where that crisis just ensued because, you know, many of you love Apple devices. Adobe employees love Apple devices. So you can just imagine the Apple fans piling on against Flash and other things. And it was just a period of time that wasn't our best. So what we learned from that is that you really need to think about the worst case scenario before you jump in. There are a few things to think about before you jump in. One is how are you going to resource it? But the most important thing is, what's your worst case scenario? Anticipate it, rehearse it, plan it. I know this sounds overly structured, and in a really, I guess, counterintuitive sort of way, being overly structured allows for more flexibility. Like, be very structured, and then you can really move between the parameters, and employees can move within those parameters very well. So, do your groundwork in advance. Figure out who are the people you need to call on in the event of a crisis, legal and search and PR and all of that. Make sure you can reach them on a Saturday night on a holiday weekend. Figure out, you know, the messaging in advance for the crisis that you can anticipate, and for those that you don't, be ready to turn on a dime. Don't wait 2 days and create a vacuum. And then during the crisis, really, really look at it and look at the trend. Is it increasing or is it dissipating? Sometimes the worst thing you could do is jump in. Sometimes it's best just to stand back, let it play out. I know it's hard. I know it hurts, but let it play out. That's for you personally, but also for your brand. There are times when there's misinformation out there. There's allegations that are not true, and you need to correct those. You absolutely do. But when it's just people venting, don't engage. Don't go to their level. Most people are inclined to voice negative feelings on social media. Look at any review. You know, look on Twitter. They're more inclined and motivated when they're unhappy than when they're happy. Keep that in mind. Eventually your defenders might come in, or eventually it'll die out. But when there's misinformation, maybe it's time to act. There are many decision trees out there. Happy to share those with you. If A equals B equals C, then engage, or otherwise don't. So I can share that with you. And then post-crisis, you know, if the crisis happened and you didn't learn anything from it, then it was a total waste of resources, total. And it just damaged you personally, and it damaged your brand. But if you were able to learn from it, then it's building to the next thing. So evaluate and learn for the next one, because it will happen. And then finally, this is about you personally. So hopefully you're all current leaders or future leaders within your businesses. Hopefully you will all be called on to be catalysts for change within your organizations. I talked a little bit about influence without authority. I talked about a lot of other things, but I really think that if you're going to take the opportunity that is social media, you need to build your profile. And maybe some of you are afraid to jump in. Maybe some of you are a little shy, like I was, to just get out there. But if you think about the people who brands are recruiting and they Google your name and they see maybe the person who's also interviewing and they have a huge search equity. They've got lots of Google references. They have lots of followers on Twitter. And then there's you and you don't have a whole lot. Who are they going to choose? They might look at that person. Wow, they've got some industry credibility. That's a value. And maybe we should bring them in on board. So I know it's not comfortable for everybody, but think about, what is the medium you would be comfortable in? If you're very deliberate and very thoughtful and you're not totally spontaneous, it's okay. Blogging is great. Blogging provides a lot of great search equity and is very, very powerful. Maybe there's other channels for you. Twitter, if you are spontaneous, is great. If you're a blogger, you can actually then add Twitter and connect that to LinkedIn and do things like that. And so that each of the content is actually repurposed for the different channels. So determine the channel and the medium that you're most comfortable with that fits your profile. And then this is really important. As a person, develop your content themes. Try to identify 3. More than 3, it gets really messy. Make them at least one of them personal, like, your kids or something scientific or something out there, like just you, that adds dimension to you and your brand. And then the other 2 are professional. And just research, read about what other people are writing about. Start to share that and start to build some following around that. Carve out time for this because it does take a lot of time. Definitely engage and retweet and shout out. Everybody loves that. If you are just broadcasting, people are going to get bored. So engage with people and welcome them. And then finally, if your role publicly, or within your company supports it, go out and speak at places because that definitely raises your profile and gets people following you and sharing information. So that's just a cheat sheet for how to build your own social profile. So with all that said, it is really imperative that both businesses but professionals build their social profile. It's really, I don't think, an option anymore not to. There's steps you can take to make that happen. You don't have to boil the ocean. Take them one by one. And then start small, prove some value, and then build on that. And so I hope this was adding value to you. I hope that this imparted some information that you hadn't heard before. And I think with that, we'll just open it up to questions, or maybe we're going to move to the Q&A.